Brooks doesn't blink in those stare downs. All right, the Kings are in San Francisco, taking on Steph Curry, the play-inbound Warriors. Steph, he returned to action on Sunday after that 27-game absence with that right knee issue. He came off the bench. He scored 29 points in only 26 minutes in that game. No one covers the Warriors more closely, though, than Steph Curry. And Anthony Slater, I think I just called you Steph Curry. Slater joins us now. No one covers the Warriors more closely. Shoot or shoot. What you going to say? Here's where I'm confused, though. Steph was on a minutes restriction, Slater, for the last game. He went over that minutes restriction. I don't think that's how restrictions work. So what's the plan for him tonight?
Look, if he's able to close out the game and they got to stretch it a couple minutes, Rick Celebrini will give the little nod, the green light. But, you know, from what I've heard, it's going to be around that again. 26, maybe stretched a little bit, which probably means he's coming off the bench again because they want him to close every quarter. And the good news for them is he came out of it feeling good, knee-wise, and he looked excellent, right? That looked like the All-NBA version of Steph Curry. The bad news is this is a very condensed timeline for them. They have 4 games in the next 6 nights. I expect him to sit one of the Thursday, Friday back-to-back, probably sit the Sacramento game on Friday. And they're trying to, you know, they have this do or die week next week in the play-in where they have to win 2 road games. He's played 8 total minutes with Kristaps Porzingis. Porzingis is questionable tonight. There's just not a lot of time to get his minutes up and his rhythm with this team back, but it's just kind of the hand they're dealt.
Right. It's sort of what they're going to have to do if they want to climb their way out of the play-in or through the play-in and into the playoffs. Slater Curry, Anthony Slater, thank you so much for the time here on NBA Today. You mentioned, though, Steph Curry and his minutes. No matter how many minutes Steph plays, he's going to make things easier for his teammates, right? But you got to be ready. Just ask his new teammate, the big man, Charles Bassey.
To be honest, man, I was so wide open, man. You know, they were telling me that because after I got the dunk and they called the timeout, GP was telling me, yo, I know you didn't know you was going to be wide open. I was like, trust me, bro. I didn't know, bro.
There's a word for that. It's called gravity. So it's time now for Inside the Game. It's powered by AWS. And the numbers, they match the eye test here with Steph Curry. So let's look at those numbers that we're talking about here, because the league average for gravity is 0. I promise that's like not it's supposed to be a mind bend. But so if you have any pull, it's a positive. Steph being at 20.3, what that means is that his gravity is about 20% better than the league average. I'm not good at math, but I do know that this creates opportunities for teammates. Danny, how does he do that?
Yes, especially guys like Charles Bassey. Draymond Green, great player. But the reason why he's great, because of a guy like Steph Curry and his gravitational pull. Charles Bassey was a recipient of that last night. You see 2 guys going to the ball. Every time he comes up to the DHO, 2 guys have to show crowd, which leaves Charles Bassey rolling to the basket for either a playmaking play or a dunk. He gets a wide open dunk. It's like, why am I so open? Another possession here. He's coming up a flare screen, gets a knockdown shot, misses it, but he's more dangerous after an offensive rebound or putback. So both guys try to find Steph Curry. They know that. So you got 2 guys watching him. Pods, wide open 3 because everybody's worried about Steph getting open for another 3 from the offensive rebound. Situation again, he's setting screens. This is why he's so good at getting open. 2 or 3 guys are on him, looking for shots, finding guys. And just when you think he's not doing anything is when he's wide open, because he's going to find a way to get to the ball. 2 guys coming off the screen. Even when you're contested highly, Kevin Durant, 7 feet. It doesn't matter. He doesn't see anybody. It's a knockdown 3. But his gravitational pull is like nobody unlike we've ever seen. And that's why Charles Bassey's wide open. Draymond Green's been so great. And his teammates get so many easy baskets.
And you know about it when he has the ball, but it's so fascinating how much gravity he has even when the ball is not in Steph's hands. Danny, thank you for showing us that. Again, down the stretch, the Warriors, they've got to find a way to get this done and play the best basketball at the right time. Hey!
Man, it's not just skills. The thing that makes me a step further than people is the obsession and the discipline I have towards the game.
So the question of Giannis's future, it's hung over the Bucks all season long, and it sharpens today. So how exactly did we get here? Well, according to SHAMS, after the team fell to 9-13, that was December 1st, his agent, Giannis, reiterated the time has come to part ways, but the trade deadline, it came and went, and no trade happened. And all the while, Giannis is dealing with injuries, and that eventually caused the NBA to launch an investigation into the Bucks for shutting him down. By the way, in the background, Giannis is still eligible for a 4-year, $275 million contract extension on October 1st, or he could be traded. So Shams has an excellent piece. It's up right now on ESPN.com, and it really details in excruciating fashion in a lot of ways what the Bucks organization, Doc Rivers, Giannis, has been going through this entire year. So can you just walk us through some of the stories that I think tell a much bigger picture than we've seen before about this contentious standoff?
So, Malika, one source with the team told me this week and really summed it up. When your best player is 1 foot in, 1 foot out, you're just not going to win. That tension bleeds over to the environment of the team, the culture of the team, and most importantly, the levers and misalignment across the organization. You think about your ownership group, your management, your coaches, and your players. It bleeds into all of that. And one specific example where we saw that from the coach and the player dynamic was the most critical point in the Bucks calendar. That was the first week of March, Malika. And that's when the Bucks had a string of games where they had to win these games. It was make or break to make the play-in tournament, which they had sold to Giannis. We're going to get to the playoffs and make some noise. And on March 1, they lost in Chicago, a double-digit lead. It ended up being a blowout defeat. Then comes March 2. It was a game of a back-to-back against the Boston Celtics. Doc Rivers called for a team meeting that day. And the day of the game, this team meeting, my understanding is in that meeting, Doc Rivers implored his team, according to 6 people in the room, to look at my resume and, quote, Google me. I took teams to the playoffs and championship that weren't supposed to be there. I thought this was one of them. That was not well received internally. And that was just another example of the disconnect between player and coach. I'll give you another example.
Wait a second. Danny's laughing. I want to hear this.
It wasn't taken
too.
well? No. Wow. I couldn't believe that wasn't taken.
Have you ever had a coach say that? Look
I've
at
had
my
some
resume,
coaches
Google
say
me?
some things. And I was coached by Doc. I wouldn't say a lot surprised. Doc was very good at talking to the group. Not a lot surprised me when certain things happened. And I've been a part of organizations where superstars are 1 foot in, 1 foot out.
Right.
You know, I've had the Kawhi situation. I've had Ben Simmons situation, even James Harden. It didn't get prolonged this far out or this long. I feel like Giannis should have been moved a long time ago.
Right.
But Doc, sometimes, again, I mean, there's a young group in here. I don't know.
That laugh was very knowing, but you had another example.
There was another example that also rubbed players the wrong way, but also was a big part of the second half of the season. March 21st, they had a game in Phoenix. There was a shoot-around that day. And my understanding is there was another team meeting, but this only had the veteran players in it, the coaches and the veteran players. So the Giannis of the world, the Bobby Portises, Kyle Kuzmas, Miles Turner, Taurean Prince, etc. And in that meeting, Doc Rivers, one by one, addresses each player, gives them feedback. Taurean Prince, Kyle Kuzma, gets to Miles Turner, and that's when multiple people in the room told me that Doc Rivers let Miles Turner know that he felt disappointed in Turner's play, that he expected more this season. And as the group started to exit the meeting was wrapping up, Giannis and Bobby were not addressed in that meeting. They're the 2 long-standing players on the Bucks. So as everyone's starting to move away, they both speak up. They both address the group. So Bobby Portis speaks up, but Giannis particularly, he's been at the focus of all of this.
Right.
In front of the coaches, in front of everyone. He stands to support Kyle Kuzma and Taurean Prince. And Miles Turner specifically telling him, listen, I let you down. It's my fault I wasn't healthy. I wasn't able to be there for you. I'm not disappointing you. It's on me. I should have been there for you and been available. And that, again, shows what the message was from the coach and what the message is from the star player, and clearly a disconnect internally there.
There's so much within what you just said. Is Iman Shumpert still there?
Shump, you still around?
Yeah, there he is.
Here.
I'm curious what your reaction is to everything that we just heard Shams detail.
Honestly, I'm curious to how Shams knows all that information coming out of a locker room.
The best in the business right here.
I am shocked. But to hear that, I definitely agree with Shams that it's like when you hear that disconnect, if you're in that locker room, I can only imagine the uncertainty that you're dealing with as far as what's the plan for me individually, what's the plan for the team now, what's the plan for the coaching now that, you know, there's a disconnect with the team. There's just a lot of question marks that now can creep into your locker room, and I don't like that for them.
So what now, Shump? You've been on many NBA teams. You've been on teams competing for championships. You've been on teams that are struggling and would have been in the play-in range if that was something that was happening.
What now for Giannis?
Right now for Giannis.
Oh, Giannis, it's time to get some sunshine, brother. You were supposed to get it early on. You didn't want to be the bad guy. And this is what I started to come to the realization that, you know, I wanted Giannis, I wanted to see Giannis finally put on a Knicks jersey, and I wanted them to explore that. But seeing how all of this is happening on the, you know, the leaving the Milwaukee Bucks, and how this has been kind of a back and forth, and there's some tension there, I wouldn't want Giannis to go to New York anymore and, you know, bring any of that tension to the New York media. They're sharks. They're going to eat this up. And I think that would do again to a locker room what you don't want to see happen. So now, to get some fresh air, you want to get the media off your back, you want to get everybody off your back, go ahead and go play in Golden State with Steph. That's what I want to see now.
I don't think the media is going to be any light there. I mean, wherever he goes, he's going to bring the media with him.
It don't got to be light.
Yeah,
it don't got to be light. It's just Steph could save him.
For sure, maybe so. We don't know who can, but he definitely needs a new home. I do appreciate him stepping up for his guys. And Doc is, you know, like certain coaches are known to be players coaches. Doc is definitely a players coach, but more of like a superstar coach. So maybe he, like, wouldn't say angled or what's named towards certain guys and not gave Giannis some of the backlash or whatever it may be. But Giannis stepped in for those guys and said his piece. And, you know, sometimes that could rub superstars the wrong way. So, but in the sense of Giannis going to New York, I wouldn't mind seeing him in a New York Knicks jersey. I think he can handle the media there.
I mean, that's another example of what you just said. So,
okay, Daddy.
Kyle Kuzma, Miles Turner, a couple other veterans, Doc Rivers, the Bucks organization basically saying, listen, like, ownership is not going to be happy, does not want you to sit with illegitimate injuries as this team is down the line here. Yep. We know where they're at. We know what they're playing for. The one player that didn't get that same edict is Giannis.
Right. So, Shump, you said you were impressed by just how much insight into this SHAMS has. I always am. So listen carefully as we tick off a couple of things here. One, do you, based on your reporting, believe that a breakup is inevitable with Giannis and the Bucks? And two, that investigation on whether or not he's going to play again this season, whether or not he's played his last game, what are you hearing there?
So let's start with the first part. Forget what I think. Everyone at the highest levels around the Bucks, you think about ownership on down, believes there's an inevitability to what this is in a trade this offseason, based on where the Bucks are at with all this, based on where Giannis Antetokounmpo has clearly been at with this. The past, in a lot of ways, has set up the present. And in 2020 and in 2023, when Giannis signed his contract extensions, sources on both sides told me there was a gentleman's agreement, a promise of sorts, that if the time ever came that Giannis was ready for a trade, ownership and management would work collaboratively to assist that. And so you think about when these requests started last May, these around Giannis looked at unfulfilled promises. So fast forward to 2 weeks before the deadline, Giannis, his agent, meet with Jimmy Haslam and Wes Edens 2 weeks before the deadline and say, hey, we're ready, do right by Giannis. They do engage with teams. There's conversations that are had. There's one team and one offer that the Bucks seriously considered in the final hours at the NBA trade deadline. That's the Miami Heat. That's an offer around Tyler Hero, Khalil Ware, other players, multiple first-round picks, multiple swaps. The Bucks obviously chose not to do that deal. My understanding is ownership believed there would be better for them in the offseason. It's best to wait on this decision until the summer. As I talked to teams that were involved in this at the deadline, like Minnesota and Golden State and Miami, etc., there were a dozen or so teams. They do believe those same comparable offers, if not better, slightly, will be there for the Bucks this offseason. So I'm not worried about that part of it if I'm Milwaukee. But Giannis will have 1 year left on his deal, and that does give him significant leverage in terms of how much a team is willing to give up if he's not ready and willing to extend.
Okay, and you said something very important there. This offseason is when your sources are saying this, not extending into next season, this offseason. Shump, last word on this, because you were making all sorts of faces over there in New York.
Because I was leaning in. I don't really have any more on the situation. I just know, Shams, when you go to sleep at night, lock that phone into the safe at your hotel. Make sure nobody gets a hold of it. I don't know how you know
Shams,
all that, brother.
Gentlemen's agreement here from me. We'll make sure the phone is...
Dub Nation, let me ask you something. What if the biggest move in the NBA isn't dead at all? What if the real blockbuster is still alive, still breathing, and still staring the Golden State Warriors right in the face? Because after this latest wave of reporting around Giannis Antetokounmpo and the Milwaukee Bucks, I'm telling y'all right now, this story is not cooling off. It is heating up, and Warriors fans should be paying very, very close attention. ESPN reported that Golden State was one of the teams that made serious contact with Milwaukee about Giannis before the deadline. And now, the newest reporting says people at the highest levels around the Bucks believe there is an inevitability to a trade this offseason. Read that again. Inevitability. That is not random gossip. That is a flashing neon sign for the whole league. In the transcript, the whole picture is chaos in Milwaukee. 1 foot in, 1 foot out. Tension in the locker room, disconnect between Doc Rivers and players, and Giannis publicly and privately carrying the weight of a season that never really stabilized. The transcript even describes a moment where Giannis stood up for teammates in a meeting, which makes him sound less like a guy locked into Milwaukee's future and more like a star trying to hold together something already cracking. And then came the line that should light up every Warriors fan. Iman Shumpert saying he wants to see Giannis go to Golden State with Steph. Ha ha! When national TV starts connecting those dots out loud, that's when rumor season gets real. Now think basketball for a second. Giannis in a Warriors uniform? Yeah! Steph Curry's gravity stretching the floor to the moon, Draymond orchestrating the defense and feeding cutters, and Giannis detonating in space with no wall built in front of him. That is nightmare fuel for the rest of the NBA. ESPN also reported that because Giannis would be entering essentially an expiring setup, his leverage matters a lot, and any acquiring team would want confidence he'd stay long-term. That's why Golden State matters. It's not just a trade destination, it's one of the few places that can sell him winning, legacy, global visibility, and immediate championship structure all at once. And here's the favorable conclusion for Warriors fans. Even if a trade hasn't happened yet, the fact Golden State was firmly in the mix tells you this front office is still hunting superstar-level outcomes, not settling for mediocrity. That matters. Franchises that are finished don't chase Giannis. Franchises that still believe in banners do. So now I'm asking you, Dub Nation, if Milwaukee really opens the door this summer, should the Warriors go all in for Giannis? Is that the move that extends Steph's title window one more time? Drop your take in the comments, smash that like button, and subscribe to Warriors Nation News. Because if this thing starts moving fast, you already know we're going to be all over it.